All right, all right, all right. Hello, everyone. This is Rolo, the Puerto Rican pistolero, coming to you live from wonderful, beautiful Miami, Florida. As you can see, we have entered. It's a little bit crowded here. I got carried away on grog. I'm not even gonna lie. It's a little bit crowded here. We have entered the end game, so I thought it would be appropriate to bring out the political Avengers here and set the stage for the players going in here. I don't know if Joe Biden deserves to be Thanos, but it came out way too good, so I had to go with it. I hope everybody's doing great so far and that you're having a wonderful week. We are down to the wire here with this election here, in the United States, I should say. I know many of you are abroad. We've got SVB bringing up the mod squad here. I know SVB's across the pond, so he's probably like, man, what the heck are you Yanks doing over there? It's all crazy. Am I a floating island? Is that what's going on? What does it look like to everybody? I don't know. It looks right over here. So I am checking this out, bro. Never in a million years. Oh, there we go. I am a floating island. Oh, yes, I am. I am a floating island of garbage. Sorry, that went way over my head and I got confused there for a second. But yes, as the Puerto Rican pistolero, apparently I am. And apparently we are all garbage if we're Trump supporters. So welcome to the garbage crew, everybody. Welcome to the landfill. That's where we're at right now. We got to pour the coffee while we get this show on the road because you know that's the tradition. So we've got to do the live pour here. Freshly brewed right now. There's a lot to talk about. It's going to be a little bit freeform because honestly, as has been happening the last few weeks, the news cycle shifts and changes so quickly, and we have so many revelations that topics that we were going to talk about before become irrelevant as new ones come in, and then the amount of things to talk about expands tenfold, and today has been one of those days. This week has been one of those weeks. You know, we started off last Friday, really coming into the final full week before the election with the hugely anticipated Joe Rogan episode with President Trump. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I know JD Vance was there today as well. So haven't gotten to watch that. Obviously, we'll check that out later tonight, and I'll have some comments on it. Tomorrow, I will probably be back for a Halloween stream. We'll see how that works out. If we do come back tomorrow night, it will be a Call of Duty Zombies stream. So if the combo's listening right now, he's probably going to be like, what the heck? I've never played Zombies. And it is installed on his Xbox, so we'll figure it out. I haven't played the new Zombies either. I've been playing the Call of Duty 6 campaign. And I do have to say that it's the best Call of Duty Black Ops 6, I should say. It is the best Call of Duty campaign that I've played in years. It's also the only one that I've played in many years, if I'm being honest. But, I mean, for me, it's up there with, it's up there with, like, the early Modern Warfare campaigns and the original, like, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2 campaigns. I think it's fantastic. I've enjoyed it a lot. So, yeah, I pretty much forgot about Halloween as well. It's weird. So, I don't even know if I have a costume or anything like that. So I'll probably just put on some random hat. You know, when you get older, when you don't have kids, like these things don't mean as much. And then when you don't live in the theme park capital of the world anymore with Halloween Horror Nights and Hallow Scream and all that stuff, it's like it's not even happening. So, but I think the scariest thing that is going on is as we enter the final week before the election. Greg the Goblin, my good Lord, Greg, dropping the $50 super chat. He's going to Orlando on Tuesday to see Baby Mel. You know, it's funny because a little bit before this time last year, I was in Orlando and I watched Baby Metal, and they were fantastic. I got to say, it was one of the most fun shows that I had ever been to. It was, I forgot where it was, like Camping World Field or whatever that park is outside of Orlando. It was awesome. Death Clock was opening for them, was playing afterwards. Didn't really stick around too much for that. I was there for Baby Metal. Really loved the show. It was fantastic. And then it was like 2 back-to-back weeks of metal shows there. It was Baby Metal one week, and then the following week it was Camelot, and they had 2 other bands open for them. Xandria, which was great. And, oh man, how could I forget the other band, because they ended up being even better. But it was just awesome power metal weekends 2 times in a row in October. So I maybe I'll go back up to Orlando in at the beginning of the year for a couple of different events. I'm still thinking about it. There's going to be Rock the Universe, which is a decidedly completely different, the opposite of metal. It's a big Christian music concert. And then I believe that the following weekend is going to be MegaCon. So I'm still deciding whether I want to go to that or not. 2 weeks in a row might be tough to swing, but we'll see. And then the annual pilgrimage to I guess the island of garbage, as they call it now. I know other Puerto Ricans must be so pissed off. Well, most of them aren't so thin-skinned, so they wouldn't be. They understand a good joke, just like we understand the we can take being called garbage by the President of the United States in stride on our own. So we'll see. There's going to be a lot of things going on in the at the end of the year and at the beginning of next year. So we'll see what we do. Obviously, if I go to if I go to MegaCon or anything like that, I'll let you guys know. I know that Commander has been involved with tabletop and things like that, and he may want to go to that as well. So we'll see how it goes. But thank you so much for the $50, Greg the Goblin, getting the party started. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit freeform, like how I've done the last few weeks. I really haven't gone into specific stories because there's just so much going on that I've just been riffing off of the commentary. And I think we'll start pretty much where the Twitter feed has been going, and we'll see how the show progresses from there. I'm not sure if I want to do a show on election night. I do want to do one more Rolo's Rants, before or during the election, but I'm not 100% sure if I want to do it on election night, because I think election night is going to be so stressful, and there are, I kind of want to watch the scenes unfold with the mod extraordinaire. She's been my political my political partner, so to speak, throughout this entire process. She's a beast, but she's not, she's behind the scenes, so she doesn't like to be on camera or anything like that or stream. But she and I have been talking this election for a long time. She's busy tonight. She's got some big things going on this evening that I'm getting updates about. So hopefully that all goes well. But I haven't decided that yet. I know it's going to be stressful. I've already taken the day off from work the next day because I know, unfortunately, the way that things are unfolding, it doesn't seem like things will get resolved on November 5th. It really seems as if we're being primed for something terrible to happen. And I think, this channel got a strike about a year ago or 2 years ago at this point. It was a retroactive strike, and it was for talking about shenanigans in the 2020 election. It seems like you can talk about that now, so that's not as big of a deal. But, something that was concerning that was brought up the other day was this New York Times article and Media Matters campaign to try to discredit and demonetize YouTube creators, prominent right-wing YouTubers. So, Ben Shapiro was the first one to kind of bring it up. And let's see if we can bring up the tweet that he had here. if we get the right window. So he had brought it up originally, and I mean, what really is there more to say here other than this is total crap? It said, "Good day, Mr. Shapiro. I hope you're well. I'm Nico Grant, a reporter at the New York Times. I wanted to give you an opportunity to comment for an upcoming article that takes a look at how political commentators have discussed the upcoming election on YouTube. We rely on an analysis conducted by researchers at Media Matters of America. Could you kindly provide us with a comment or decline by the end of the day tomorrow, Tuesday, October 27th? Thanks so much. Here are the points that we plan to include." So I'll make this a little bit smaller so you guys can see the entire tweet here. And then it goes on. It goes on to say, Media Matters identified 286 YouTube videos between May and August that contained election misinformation, including narratives that have been debunked or are not supported with credible evidence. Researchers identified videos posted by you in those 4 months that contain election misinformation. We feature a clip of you saying your party rigged many of the voting rules in advance of the election in order to ensure an extraordinary number of mail-in ballots, ballot harvesting. I also have questions. Are you a member of the YouTube Partner Program? If so, how frequently does YouTube demonetize your videos? Has YouTube sent you messages, emails, or notices in the last year that your content contains misinformation? Thank you for your time. This went out to Benny Johnson. This went out to Tucker Carlson, I believe Tim Pool as well, and a few others. And it just goes to show exactly, the depths that these people will go to try to win and manipulate the results of this election. And I'm just going to openly talk about it. We're also live on Rumble and X. So at this point, I am wholeheartedly expecting that if these things go through, if there are major shenanigans with the election, and if things go the way that we don't expect it to go, which would be a Kamala Harris victory, that anybody that talks about this, anybody that questions the election is going to get nuked. So I wholeheartedly believe that my channel will get nuked in even broaching these topics and talking about the things that I'm going to discuss tonight. But at this point, I really don't give a damn, because this is extremely important. We need to highlight everything that is going on here, and we need to hold these people accountable. We really do. We know that during the 2020 election, the Hunter Biden laptop was obfuscated. We knew that you could not talk about the COVID-19 jabs. We know that if you talked certain ways about January 6th, all this stuff, they would demonetize you. They would strike your channel down. They would do all manner of things, deboost you, and try to hide you from the results. I don't care. We've got Rumble and X now, so go ahead and subscribe to my Rumble. I'll just drop the Rumble link here as we're going along, because there's no point in even bothering if we've got to do this. So I'm not afraid of this. I don't make a living off of YouTube. I appreciate all the super chats, like from Greg and everybody else. I'd like not to lose that if possible, but that's why I have a Cash App. We've got Rumble. You can drop Rumble Rants there. I don't think X has any sort of monetization right now like that, but you can go watch on X instead as well, because we really need to find alternative sources of media. That's why I've diversified all of this since I've gotten into the political game again, because it's absolutely necessary, and we cannot allow the powers that be to suppress our freedom of speech. And we know that's exactly what's going to happen if Kamala Harris and her cronies are able to maintain their power in Washington, D.C. We know that that's what's been going on in the rest of the world. We know that the EU is trying to take down Elon Musk and his corporations. And if Elon Musk, who is the wealthiest man in the world, who owns some of the most prominent and important corporations on earth, is willing to put everything on the line for this election and for our freedoms, then I think we all need to be willing to do that at this point. I've said it many times on this show, and I will continue to say it. And this isn't a knock on anybody else, anywhere else in the world. but it really is down to about 100 to 150 million people in the United States that are holding the line against essentially total global domination by these massive NGOs, by the intelligence state, by the UN and the globalists. And that's not to say that there aren't those of you out there in the UK and Australia and other nations throughout the world that care and that are willing to you're trying to put the word out there. It is that you guys don't have the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. That's it. So frankly, if your governments decide to really crack down with force, you have nothing that you can really do about it. And some nations, especially in the EU, have been so pervasively invaded by, Islamic forces, illegal immigrants, from different countries throughout the world, that they have basically set it up so that you have been completely invaded and oppressed. And if they decide to go full V for Vendetta on you, I just don't know what you can really do. There's not going to be too much you can do. So we are trying to hold the line here in the United States so that we can continue to do what we've always done, and that is to promote freedom as individuals. And we're in a battle against, let's be honest, the intelligence state here, because the intelligence state in the United States of America really is oppressing the entire world. And as somebody who is a patriot of the United States, who loves this country, who's had family and friends serve, who wanted to serve in the military, it was a very difficult pill for me to swallow, to realize that a lot of the oppression and evils of the world are caused by our own government here. And that's just a fact. It's a terrible thing to admit. It is awful. And this is a terrible, it's a terrible circumstance that we're in. So, freedom loving individuals throughout the world, we have to hold the line as much as we can. We have to support each other, and we have to support platforms like X. But I really do think that where this election goes, it will clearly affect the rest of the world, because if the globalists get their money from the United States, they take it from the American taxpayer primarily, and where we go, the rest of the world will go. And the only other superpower that we've got is going to be the Chinese, and the Chinese Communist Party is not going to be any better than what the U.S. is. And in fact, I would say that the CCP is exactly what other countries want to emulate. So that's what they want to bring here. They want to bring total control, total monitoring of social media, of purchases, everything like that. Oppress us, take away your rights, and really push it all down. So I think that this is pretty much it. I've felt the momentum shift in Trump's direction, but we're also seeing some shenanigans that made me a little bit nervous lately, because I can see the level of desperation that they're going to go to. And I also know that despite the fact that we do have some recourses here in the United States with rights that are, enshrined in our Constitution, I have to be careful with my language here. There's a lot of different things that they can do to to kind of nullify those options. The intelligence state has a lot of resources at their disposal. We know that they have tried to take President Trump out twice, and I'm convinced that was a deep state operation. You can't really convince me otherwise. So I think that even if Donald Trump wins, God forbid, I think that they will try to prevent him from being inaugurated. I think if he does make it to the inauguration, which I think at this point he's got to fortify himself in Mar-a-Lago or do something like that, or just go all in with security, because you won't be able to trust the federal government with his safety. I think that they will try everything at every turn to take him down and to make his life a living hell during his second term as president. There will be sabotage. There'll be, internal strife. I think that they'll try to mobilize Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all the left-wing groups that you can imagine to cause violence throughout the United States. I think one of the things that they're really trying to do right now is to provoke the right, because they know that we do own so many firearms, and they know that we've been gaslit so much that I think they're really poking very hard. I think an example that we can have of the behavior that we should display is really how people in North Carolina have conducted themselves after Hurricane Helene. We know that there have been a ton of terrible things that have come to light with what FEMA's doing, with the seizure of properties, with shady business deals, with mines and things like that. That's not something I've discussed, but I've pretty much amassed enough evidence to go into an entire show just about that, about BlackRock and Vanguard being involved with mining interests there, being involved with some mortgage companies there, doing different things for FEMA. FEMA's rules changes when it comes to floodplains and things like that. So there's already a lot of shenanigans with that. We've seen local forces, really, because that's the only way to describe it, band together and distribute resources and aid throughout that region without government help. That's something that makes the government look bad. They absolutely hate it, but nobody's used violence or anything like that to even push the feds out of there. And that's something that we need to take to heart. But again, I think the real issue is you can't underestimate these people, and you can't underestimate how they've destabilized other countries. Jimmy Dore had a fantastic interview. Jimmy Dore, for those of you that don't know, he is traditionally he's been a left-wing comedian, and he was a co-host of the Young Turks many years ago. So not somebody that you would expect to be an ally of the cause, but he really laid out what happened in Ukraine and how the CIA and the powers that be were able to destabilize that country and manipulate their elections and get the results they wanted, leading up to the war that we see today, between Russia and Ukraine, and how we've been pulled into that, how we've dumped billions upon billions of dollars into that conflict. And I think that that's the perfect example of turning some of those tactics around and using them in the United States. Mike Benz is another fantastic watch. He's been making the rounds on several podcasts. I've talked about him here before. He's the one that really defined the intelligence state, explained how after World War II, the OSS and then the CIA manipulated the Italian elections because they were going to vote the commies in. Obviously, that would have been bad, but manipulating a country's sovereign elections is pretty awful and immoral. So this is something that they've been doing overseas. We know that the military rules of engagement have changed, where it appears that our U.S. military can now be used forcefully on American soil. There are training exercises that have been going on at the Capitol with extraction helicopters. So something is going on right now. Something is absolutely going on. And I think that, even if they cannot steal this election outright, they're going to try to do a few things. We'll talk about them here because we've got, a lot of, it seems like there's a lot of evidence that's piling up of things that are occurring. We also know Catherine Herridge did drop, and I can play a short clip of this, but, if you really want to know more, you'll have to go ahead and check out what she has to say here about the IRS and the intelligence officials covering up the Hunter Biden laptop. So we'll play a couple of minutes of that here if you have not seen it. Catherine Herridge is, honestly, she's probably one of the few real journalists left in this country. Some people may disagree with her. Well, I don't even really know what her politics are. She seems to be a pretty straight shooter. So I think this is, worth checking out here. So we'll check out a couple of minutes.
You received this email from your IRS supervisor after Hunter Biden's guilty plea. Thank you for your commitment to the mission, which culminated in a great conviction.
Those are words that are not supported by the actions of the agency.
What you're saying is that within the IRS, there is disparate treatment of American taxpayers.
What they call is sensitive investigations.
But sensitive investigation sounds like code for powerful elite people.
There's a list in the Internal Revenue Manual that says what a sensitive person is, and it's exactly that.
There was no question in your mind the big guy was Joe Biden.
We corroborated the big guy was Joe Biden, yes.
We knew that the laptop was real. DOJ knew that the laptop was real.
FBI knew the laptop was real.
There were a lot of overt investigative steps that we were not allowed to take because we had an upcoming election.
When we were doing the interviews, the prosecutors specifically told us that they didn't want to ask about the big guy because they knew it was Joe Biden.
You came forward as whistleblowers. Your information was accurate, yet you're sitting here today with us alleging that you've been punished every step of the way by the government bureaucracy.
IRS is just has a smothering blanket on me, hoping that I quit, that they find some way to terminate me or commit suicide or something.
And I'm up against a machine that has millions of dollars, that has the ability to fight me.
People have to have confidence justice is going to be administered fairly, regardless of who you are.
So I encourage everyone to check that out. That's on Catherine Herridge's Twitter account and all her social media, or X account, I should say. And it really goes in depth of what they did to cover up the Hunter Biden laptop. And, you know, and I'm sure many of you are convinced that there's a lot of different things that happened in 2020 to manipulate the results of that election. But I think the blocking the Hunter Biden laptop when 40,000 votes made the difference in all these swing states total really was the big X factor. And honestly, without that, you don't get January 6th or any of these other, operations that the government was most likely responsible for. You don't get the second impeachment farce. You don't get any of these things. But I do think that the silver lining here is there is no doubt that this Trump administration, the upcoming one, is far superior, and there's a far superior coalition and team behind Donald Trump than any that he had going into 2020. So it's possible, if we look at it, hindsight being a gift that we have right now, that in the long run, this may work out better, despite going through 4 years of Biden and Kamala, which has been awful for the United States. We really have a chance right now to do something unprecedented. And Donald Trump himself on Joe Rogan's interview said that really his biggest mistake during his first term was choosing terrible personnel, whether it was John Bolton, who's the warmonger, John Kelly, among many others, and, choosing establishment individuals to make up his cabinet. It was a horrible mistake, and it's the reason why he didn't go after Hillary Clinton. It's the reason why during COVID they were able to, really tie his hands behind his back. He made his own decisions there that I know a lot of people aren't happy about with the jab. But let's be perfectly honest. It was unprecedented what he had to go through. It was unprecedented how he was turned on by his own team, by the generals in the Department of Defense, and politicians within the Republican Party, which should have been backing up all of his policy agenda the whole time. And his lack of experience in being a politician, which is what was appealing about him, but also was a hindrance. Now he's back. He's ready to learn from those mistakes. And I think that when you have essentially a dream team of J.D. Vance as your vice president, who... honestly, I can't wait for JD's opportunity to become president of the United States, because I think he's going to knock it out of the park as well and really keep the populist movement going forward. You've got Vivek Ramaswamy, who is right there with Vance. I think that really Vance is almost a combination of Trump and Vivek, in the sense that he has all of the knowledge and the political acumen and the suaveness and really the ability to articulate his points that Vivek has, but he's got some of that dog in him that Donald Trump has, where he can just be condescending and make fun of these people in a way fearlessly. Vivek is a little bit nicer about that stuff, but JD can be just as mean as Trump if he needs to be, and really make fools out of these people. You've got Tulsi, who I think Tulsi speaks for herself. I was always a little bit skeptical about her because her stance on the Second Amendment was lacking for a better word, for a long time, but it seems like she's come around to that. She's obviously joined the Republican Party now, which was a huge deal. And I think that her anti-war stance and even her military experience is something great. She's also serious. She's not a woke individual like a lot of these, leftists are. She doesn't even seem like she's really a leftist at all. She seems pretty pragmatic. Maybe she's a bit socially liberal. But at this point, I would honestly rather see the policies domestically that RFK and Tulsi would advocate for as far as helping individuals in the United States versus sending billions upon billions of dollars overseas and bringing in and paying for a bunch of illegals, many of whom are hardened criminals. So if my taxpayer dollars are going to go to something, let it go to the American people and helping the American people, because the American people do need help. And, I went on my rant last week. I think that that's something that we need to assume ourselves. We need to have more empathy for our fellow Americans and help them out so that they don't need the government to help them. Being a Christian, that's just the right thing to do. And that's what I believe in. So we do need to work on that. But having some of those, having people like that are more old school liberals, I don't think that's going to be a bad thing, especially with what they bring to the table and exposing the military industrial complex, the intelligence state, and big pharma, and all these other massive industries that have been colluding and having an incestuous relationship with the federal government and creating what is true fascism here in the United States for the last couple of decades, especially with social media and the data monitoring apparatus that they allow. So, we've got them, and we've got, of course, Elon Musk, who is the Tony Stark of our time. I think it's just unprecedented. And really having X and Rumble, especially X now, Rumble is getting better all the time, but having these platforms that are not controlled by the intelligence state and big tech is massive. And it is really, I think that single-handedly, it will be, if Donald Trump wins this election, it will be because of Elon Musk more than anything else. There is no doubt. Because had Elon Musk not purchased X, we would be pretty screwed right now. And I guarantee you that YouTube and all these other platforms would be continuing the legacy of what they did in 2020. We wouldn't have gotten Trump back on social media. We would not have gotten all of these other accounts and streamers back on social media. We wouldn't be allowed to talk about what we want to talk about, and they would have suppressed everything that we're seeing right now. And obviously the amount of money that he has poured into this campaign, the energy that he's brought into this campaign, and the hope for the future of America that he's brought with SpaceX and other technologies is unprecedented and something that we have not seen since the space race in the 1960s and 70s. So, sorry. We've got to give, we've got to give Elon a ton of credit for that. I'm not sure about Neuralink. I think Neuralink could be a bad thing in the future, but hey, we're trying to buy some time right now. Really, what we need to look at when it comes to this election, when it comes to what's at stake and really what's realistic for Trump to achieve. I mean, I'm wearing my Make Taxation Theft Again hat. I think it's great that Trump wants to potentially remove income tax. I don't think Congress is going to allow that, even if you get a full Republican Congress. So, but I think it's something that's great and aspirational. It makes the libertarians happy, and maybe we can bring more of the non-crazy libertarians into the fold here. But I truly think that Trump's only going to have 4 years. They are going to set things up badly for him if he gets in. So either they're going to try to take him out of the picture before he can even assume office. They're going to try to sabotage him as he dismantles the bureaucratic state apparatus. I can imagine that there's going to be lawsuits all over the place. I can imagine that even if the Republican Party is able to gain control of both houses of Congress, that you're going to get a lot of rhinos working with the leftists to undermine his administration and to avoid passing certain things that he's going to want. You are going to get lawsuit after lawsuit. You're going to get corporations causing shenanigans. So it is going to be a political war. It's going to be an absolute political war with Trump there. So he's going to have to delegate what he's doing. He's almost going to have to distribute the power of the presidency to, this team that he's amassed, these patriotic Avengers, so to speak. So, they're going to try everything. I could see in the lame duck period, possibly pulling us into conflict, maybe in the conflict in Ukraine, maybe escalating things in the Middle East. I'm a big supporter of Israel, but, I don't necessarily want to get pulled into a war. I think that they're doing just fine with what they're doing on their own, and they're justified in doing what they need to do. I think that there's a more spiritual aspect to that, and I know that's something that a lot of people may not agree or care about, but that's pretty much my opinion on that. So I think Israel is an extremely important ally for more reasons than are just political. They have a lot of significance, but I don't want to get pulled into an unnecessary conflict if we don't need to. So, and I especially don't want us to get pulled into the Ukraine war against Russia, or something with China that's unnecessary or premature. We need to bring back our manufacturing here. We need to reduce regulations. Honestly, I'd like to get to the point where if the Chinese want to take Taiwan, that we don't even care, because we won't rely on Taiwan for anything either. And so that needs to be the goal. I think Trump can move us in that direction, but we're going to have a very short amount of time, and they're going to, even with a Republican Congress, try to make him a lame duck and try to dodge minefields at every step. So you're going to need JD to probably be a more powerful vice president than you've ever seen before. Going out there, you're going to need to almost go out on the stump, continually give speeches, expose the media, expose the intelligence state. I think you're going to need to declassify a lot of things. I think you're going to really need to blow the door open on the Epstein client list, whatever's going on with P. Diddy, because it's very obvious that a lot of the elites, both in Hollywood and within Washington, D.C., are involved with this, and the massive trafficking operations that occur with children and women in this country throughout the world, a lot of the deviancy that goes on, and that has to be exposed. That absolutely has to be exposed. We have to expose insider trading. We have to expose the incestuous nature and collusion of major corporations with the federal government. We need to we need to go into the underbelly of the deep state itself and eliminate redundancy within the federal government. So we need Elon Musk and Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, to go in there and start cutting things out. And at a minimum, even if you can't pass legislature, you have to set the foundation in place for a J.D. Vance presidency, and also to undermine the progressive authoritarian movement in the United States. So I think that you really need to make it so that you expose so much of the corruption within the federal government that the American people won't be able to deny it. The media won't be able to hide it. And you empower those who come after you to be able to continue this legacy, because this is going to take decades to dismantle and to wrangle in. It really is. 4 years is not going to be enough. Donald Trump is not going to be able to do it as much as we want to. We have to be realistic about this. It's taken really since the end of the Civil War to get the United States where it is today. Really, after World War II, once America became a superpower, is when we really saw this ramp up with the military-industrial complex, the intelligence state. And it's going to take decades to dismantle it, because we're also going to be going against forces that have dirt on everybody, that are not afraid to play duplicitously, do immoral things, and kill if they need to in order to defend their power. So it's going to get nasty. It's going to get very nasty. You're going to have a lot of people going crazy too. They have been brainwashed by the left-wing media in this country. We're going to have to deal with a generation of people that have grown up believing, not knowing what sexes are. We're going to have to undo a lot of this programming, and we're not authoritarian, so we can't do it the way that the left would do it, with throwing people in, like, re-educating them and things like that. We're not going to be able to do that. So we're going to have to deal with it and reconcile it, and we can't do it in a way that's authoritarian. So we're always going to be at a disadvantage here, because the Constitution is what empowers us, but it does also keep our hands tied behind our back, so to speak, because our enemies will always be able to take advantage of the fact that they have free speech as well. So they will be able to counter and release propaganda to go against the truths that we throw out there. Hey, how's it going, Hypnotic? Great to see you, buddy. My Puerto Rican brother from another mother. So this is what we have stacked against us, and this is what Trump has stacked against him, and that's why it's going to be critical that we have his team take care of a lot of this stuff. And I think he's going to have to empower them to almost like, I'm going to use a religious analogy here, almost like how, Christ gave the apostles the ability to perform miracles and to spread his word, throughout the promised land. That's basically what Trump's going to have to do. Not that Trump is a religious figure or anything like that at all. He's just a man, and we should never look at any man or idolize anybody except for our Lord, and Savior. But I think that that's almost the approach that he's going to have to take. He will have to be the leader who stands on top and who ultimately makes the decisions where the buck stops, but empower JD to take care of Congress as the president of the Senate and to really whip things up there, give speeches, have Vivek out there as another almost not like a press secretary, but almost as your PR guy that goes across the countryside and gives these speeches and informs people about what's going on. Have him go on the news shows all the time and fight against the media. And you can have JD do this too. Those two are such effective communicators, and they're able to destroy the media. And the media is going to have them on. I mean, they're going to be members of the administration, so they have to cover it. They will have no choice. And I think you've seen a few cracks with what's been going on with with the Washington Post, USA Today, and all of that, where the media understands that it has gone so far to the authoritarian left that they're being exposed. And that's why you're seeing some weird things like Anderson Cooper giving a decent interview to Kamala Harris. Why you've been seeing the non-endorsements and Bezos writing that letter saying that the media needs to become more trustworthy and they need to hire more conservatives. And make no mistake, they're not doing this because they want to be fair and balanced. They're doing it because they're seeing the writing on the wall. And I think that they know a little bit more than we do about the direction that this election is going. And they understand that if they want to have any sort of credibility or survival in the future, they will at least have to play a little bit of ball here. And even if they don't endorse or agree with conservative and freedom-minded principles, they'll have to bring us onto their shows. They're not going to have any choice in that matter, especially if it's a member of the president's cabinet. So that will give us the opportunity to spread the word throughout the country and to control the narrative a little bit better, because they can keep trying to spin things, but you can see how much trouble they have every time that, JD or Vivek are on one of their shows. They are unassailable because they're both so savvy and so intelligent and such students of history and even understanding current events that the media just can't do anything to stop them. So you have them go out there as the arbiters of truth, so to speak. You've got Tulsi maybe in the Department of Defense really cracking the skulls of the bureaucratic the bureaucratic generals and the political generals, and completely dismantling all of that, making sure that the Joint Chiefs of Staff aren't people who are lobbying for the military-industrial complex, but men and women who have combat experience, who care about the people under their arms and do their best to defend the United States, but also prevent us from going to wars at all costs. You know, it's ironic that when it was the Department of War, we got into a lot less conflict. But now when we switched it to the more politically correct term, the Department of Defense, it seems like the U.S. is constantly at war. So we really need to bring it back to those older principles. And you know what? Maybe calling it the Department of War again and making people a little bit more uncomfortable about it is one psychological way that you can do that. Because everybody's like, oh man, they just deal with war. We don't want war. And it's a constant reminder of what the military does. So we need to, I think that's a lot of what Trump needs to do. RFK is the wild card for me here because I think he can do great in health and human services and help us, push back against big pharma. At the same time, if there's anybody who the CIA and the intelligence apparatus would hate having at their helm, it would be RFK, because RFK's got a bone to pick with them, because he's been completely explicit about the fact that he thinks that the CIA is responsible, at least partially, for the deaths of his father and uncle, RFK and JFK. So I think putting him in there and blowing that wide open, I think we need to eliminate a ton of the intelligence agencies, because there's no reason why we have, 5, 6, 7, 8, who knows how many intelligence agencies that are doing a lot of the same things. So I think we need to reel that back. We need to do some consolidation. We need to lean things down. Obviously, whether we like it or not, we do have to have some sort of intelligence organizations, both external and internal, to make sure that our enemies, foreign and domestic, can't undermine us. But when they become this panopticon of evil and manipulation, and essentially a mafia that is blackmailing both, politicians, elites, and normal American citizens, and trying to push us, into different conflicts throughout the world, manipulating other elections, including our own, then that's a serious problem and something that we really can't allow to continue to run amok. So we need to bring them back to what their original purpose is, which is truly defending the Constitution of the United States and making sure that foreign adversaries, terrorist groups, criminal organizations can't take hold or attack the United States, but we can't allow them to be the mafia that they've been in the past. And that's going to be easier said than done. You know what they're going to do. They're going to try to blackmail everybody. They're going to manipulate data. This is why AI and deepfakes, as fun as these guys standing around me are, I think that, this kind of shows a little bit of the problem that we have here, that you can create such authentic looking images. And this is pretty much early AI vision manipulation. The videos that you can create now are incredible, that in the future, it's going to become extremely difficult to identify deepfakes. And so we'll see false flag operations, false intelligence, all this stuff. You're going to have to use AI to combat AI. And then at that point, you don't even know what the heck is going on. What can you really trust? And so we will be heading towards a post-truth society. And I almost think that we'll be going into, our technology will be extremely advanced, but we'll almost have to go through a reversion when it comes to media. And what do I mean by that? I think that we're going to have to go back to, in some cases, traditional photography, physical media that can't be manipulated, almost like CDs that can't be rewritten. I think, writing things down is going to become extremely important, word of mouth, because you won't be able to trust what the media is showing you. You won't be able to trust what's going on online. You're never going to be 100% sure if world leaders are giving speeches. You'll never know if that country really has weapons of mass destruction, whether we really did get attacked or somebody else got attacked. If aliens appear one day, you won't know if it's actually true. So there are all these things that are going to become extremely difficult to discern, and it's going to happen within the next, two, 3, 4, 5 years. And we're already seeing it now. We've seen that photo of Kamala Harris in the McDonald's uniform come out. A lot of people were able to figure that out quickly because there are AI image, image investigation tools that we have out there. But as the processing power of this stuff increases, you're not going to be able to do that easily. And then you're also going to have to trust that the AI that you're using isn't also being manipulated in some way. What if we get to the point where we're like Deus Ex, where some of these news anchors that you're watching aren't actually flesh and blood? They're completely digitally created. They don't exist. And they're pushing out a narrative that you have no way of knowing whether it's true or not. So this is going to happen right now. This is going to happen. It's already happening. And it's going to be tough to run any sort of society. And that's probably one of my biggest fears, to be honest, that we're going to get to this point. And really, a lot of the things that were promises of, the betterment of mankind, they're just going to be used by governments to oppress us further and further. So that's what's going to make this administration so important. And I really do believe that Trump's administration, if Trump doesn't win, we have had the last, we probably had our last legitimate election in 2016. Let's be honest. That's the way it's going to be. And we'll never have a legitimate election again in this country. And the ability to be able to do things physically to prevent the government from oppressing us are going to limit as time passes by. Because again, they'll be able to manipulate people. They'll be able to create some sort of false flag operation to turn us against one another. And they will already be able to, like, let's say that you wanted to organize some sort of protest right now. We know that federal agents are going to be embedded there. We know that for a fact. So how could you even organize some sort of massive protest on the right without agent provocateurs embedding it and turning everyone against each other and creating some sort of false flag where the right is blamed for everything and the media pushes that? Without some sort of command and control structure or leadership, if they lock Trump away or if they take him out, you're not going to have any sort of leader behind that type of movement. So it doesn't necessarily matter if you have a Second Amendment to help you if it becomes the Tower of Babel. Nobody can speak the same language, nobody can communicate, and nobody can, create some sort of underground movement to be able to stop the oppression throughout the world. This is why China is in the position that they're in. The people in China can literally do nothing because there's constant surveillance everywhere and they can manipulate all the information. We're only a couple of steps away from that. So that is what really makes this so critical. And even if you happen to be somebody who is, left wing, but you don't believe in authoritarianism, Donald Trump is your only choice as well. Because I can tell you with honesty that a right-wing regime will not take over if Donald Trump doesn't win. Like, that'll never be a possibility. But it doesn't matter because you're already going to have authoritarianism. And I don't care whether we're suffering under right-wing or left-wing authoritarianism. Authoritarianism is authoritarianism. All your rights are going to be stripped away from you, and they're going to manipulate everything that you see. So I think that that's really where we're at. Those are the stakes that we have right now. And again, this is not going to get fixed by one election cycle. It's not going to be fixed by one man. This is going to be a generational battle. And what a Donald Trump presidency in 2025 and going forward gives us is time added to the clock. Look, the United States, if you want to go to a spiritual sense, we're being judged right now. We really are, because we have gone so far, and you could think of that spiritually, you can think of that metaphorically. I happen to think that there's a spiritual judgment going on in the United States right now, because we really are, when you think about it, responsible for so many of the evils. And by we, I mean that as a country and our government are responsible for so many of the evils that are being perpetrated throughout the world right now, whether we're in charge of them directly or we fund them or we allow them to happen, that there is a price to be paid for all of this. And the price may just be our freedoms. It may be our very souls in the end of the day. If it all falls apart, I'm not being hyperbolic about that. But when you think about the rampant, the pedophilia that's being pushed, the destruction of innocence with children through the transgender movement, the trafficking of drugs everywhere, the pushing of pornography and other materials, the wars that we keep funding and the death that we're causing, the deaths that we've already committed through abortion, all of this stuff. We really are responsible. Our government is responsible for a lot of this stuff. We allow other regimes to take control. We manipulate them so that we get other evil regimes to exist, and so that we can perpetuate other conflicts. This results in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, millions throughout the globe. And we're the ones funding the UN and other world government organizations. So we really have to answer for this. And the only way that we can stop this or slow it down is through Donald Trump being president. So this just punches our ticket to the finals. We still have to win the game. And that's a game that's going to go into an almost infinite number of overtimes until we're able to defeat it. That is why I always go back to my favorite quote, which is eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. It really is. And I think that this is really how we have to think about it. These are the stakes that are involved with what is going on here. And you're absolutely right, Forgotten Man. That is the enemy within. That is the enemy within that we're talking about, because we really do have these forces that are trying to undermine us within the government. And it's not the other American people. I think that when, they're very deliberate. Biden was when he called Trump supporters garbage. They really do see us that way, because to them, we are garbage. We're the unwashed masses. We're the Luddites. We're the ones that don't understand, that are holding them back from what they want to do, which is to perpetuate evil, have total control, and to really suck us into their depravity. The reason why they push all this immoral stuff is because it is what they themselves are doing. They are constantly trying to project upon us what they themselves are doing. It's a common tactic, and it's not just for control. It is they know what they are doing is evil and wrong. And if they don't want to be judged by us as individuals, they know that they have to make this mainstream. They've got to normalize transgenderism. They have to normalize, deviancy and all of these things, so that when they get caught of doing them, we're not going to care, because we're just going to be like, well, that's what everybody does, right? Like, that's pretty normal. And then they can be out in the open when they do all of these things. And so we have to prevent a world where that happens. And it is going to take a lot of effort. And I'm going to keep going back to it. It will not be done in 4 years. We need to have a permanent shift. And this is why I think more than anything else, more than cutting taxes, more than reforming our laws, more than anything else, it is going to be exposing the federal government corruption and the intelligence state apparatus and the evil things that our politicians and elites have done, and the corporations. That will be more important than anything else that Trump could possibly do. It really is. Because if we don't expose these people, they will just keep coming back. They will keep coming back. And even if we get a good presidency through Trump, and they're somehow not able to continue to use the media to manipulate and undermine him, because look, they're going to try to make Trump's last term here as terrible as possible. They'll tank the economy, try to pull us into a war, do anything they can to distract and to tie his hands. That then then a lot of the American people will be clamoring to go back to the Democrat Party, even if we put protections in place to prevent the election from being stolen. Because this is what happens. We are an unengaged and very distracted people. I'll be the one that says it. A large portion of the country is lazy and stupid. Let's be honest. And I don't care who's offended by that, because it is the truth. More people would rather sit at home and do Netflix and chill, or, do the things that we love to do, play video games and do all that stuff and be entertained, than to actually pay attention. Because once you know what is going on in the world and how terrible it is, it's awful. It's awful. Nobody wants to know that the U.S. government is corrupt and does evil things. Nobody wants to know about child trafficking. Nobody wants to know about war. Nobody wants to worry about, the deficit and everything else that's going on. That's not fun. Those things aren't great. We don't want to hear it. We'd rather be distracted with our bread than circuses. This has happened to every major society throughout history, and that is the human tendency, right? It literally goes to physics. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. Atoms always want to stay at their most stable level. They don't want to change. That is how everything is. Everything wants some sort of stability, even if that stability is at the cost of freedom. And that is what we always want. And that is what they discovered during COVID. That's what the Chinese have discovered. Yes, there will always be those who are rabble-rousers and who resist. But if you give them enough comfort, it will not be worth it. It won't be worth it, because you'll have just enough comfort that even if they're like, well, you know what, you can't have guns and go out to the shooting range with your buddies and do all that stuff, as they erode us slowly over generation after generation, where they either discredit and demonize the opposition and people that care about our values, and give people things to become distracted. So it's discredit, distract, and demonize. Those are the 3 Ds right there that you really need to look at. And then they'll make you dead, essentially, culturally or even physically. Then they'll win, because that's what they'll be able to do. And it will take time. So it will take much more work for us to convince people that they want freedom, to pull them out of the matrix, than it'll be for them to give us the bread and circuses. Let's be honest, because everybody would just rather stay at home and order their food online and order stuff from Amazon, watch movies all the time, go into our virtual worlds or watch sports, than to go outside and actually do work and do things like that. But that's what we need to do. We need to start appreciating the world around us and take control of it again, rather than allowing other people to manipulate it and manipulate our mindset and manipulate the mindsets of our children so that they don't even believe these things. That's why other countries have already fallen. It's not because their populations are stupid. It's because they don't even comprehend what freedom and things like the Constitution, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, the right to keep and bear arms, trial by jury, all of these things. They can't even comprehend what that is, because they haven't been exposed to it before. And that's what they will try to do. Have us unlearn all of those things and hope that either over generations, those of us that believe those things will die off, or if they have to, they'll just eliminate us from the equation. So this is really what we need to do. We need to continue to expose this stuff, and we can't let people forget it. And this is what it's going to take. So, I mean, in better news, well, I think we should watch this real quick, just because this will lighten the mood. This will give us a little bit of levity here. And I think this guy has an idea about what's going on here. This guy has an idea about what's going on and how to do it.
Lawyer just called and asked if I was ready for court tomorrow. I said, hell yeah, I ain't going. See, I've been spending the last 6 months booby trapping my entire 500 acres. I got snake pits, rolling logs, bear traps. I got some straight up Indiana Jones shit. I got a fucking boulder that'll fall down when you open my front door. I got about 120 coyotes that I trained to bite anything with a crew cut and a fucking badge. I flew an old Vietnamese man out here, and he helped me dig about 12 miles worth of underground tunnels. I have 450 cameras I've rigged to solar panels all around this motherfucker. I got a Bengal tiger locked in my bathroom who fucking killed for a pork chop right now. You know, it's surprisingly easy to teach a raccoon how to loosen lug nuts and cut brake lines. I'd rather live the rest of my life in the woods living off fucking wild ginseng creek water than go to fucking jail one more time. I don't even try to bring no helicopters down here neither, like I ain't got a whole fucking coop full of pigeons with C4 tied around their feet. Got a bunch of PVC pipe filled with gunpowder and ball bearings and a baboon who is deadly accurate with a nail gun.
Oh my God, that guy is never gonna get old for me. That's just great. Oh man, but he's got the idea there, right? He's got the idea. He's not gonna let them go after him. So, but yeah, in all seriousness, this is what I was talking about, this emergency drill that was going on in DC. So we know that there's a lot of weird things going on here. Military does things like this from time to time, but we've been seeing this more and more recently, and we saw and heard about that Department of Defense directive where use of force will be authorized by the military against the American people, which violates posse comitatus. I don't know how that's possible, but it's been going on. We're seeing the suppression campaign attempts by Media Matters and the New York Times and the legacy media. But let's go to some of the good things. It does appear that the Harris campaign is pulling out of ads in North Carolina, and they've shifted a lot of those over to Virginia. And, we've been seeing a shift. The betting markets have Trump up by almost 30% at this point. The polling is still kind of all over the place, but it seems like Trump is winning all of the battleground states, and that's why we're seeing a lot of shenanigans in Michigan and Pennsylvania, really the most, more than anywhere else at this point. But we are seeing weirdness in Washington State, in New York State, and I have a bit of a theory. If I were optimistic and I were to say that it would be impossible, or if that they wouldn't cheat at all, let's say that everything was on the up and up, I personally think that Donald Trump is on track of winning around 312 electoral votes. You need 270 to win. And I think he's going to probably win the popular vote by 1 or 2%. And I think right now they're not sure if they can actually steal the election because it's going to be so overt. But I think if you saw what happened, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about what happened at the Madison Square Garden rally. I'm not going to empower the left and give them more ammunition here. But if you saw the comedian, the comments that he made about Puerto Rico, big deal. He talked about a bunch of things, and he tells very offensive jokes all the time. I didn't give a crap. Like I said on Twitter, if you're a Puerto Rican or a Hispanic, first of all, if you're a Latino and you hung out with other Latinos, you know that Latinos are like a lot of other ethnic groups. Asians are probably the most primary one, where if you are a Mexican, Dominican, Puerto Rican, Venezuelan, Colombian, whoever, there you will talk so much garbage that about one another that is racist, bigoted, and just downright freaking mean, that any Karen out there would get freaking PTSD. There is nobody, there's no group of people that talks more absolute crap than Latinos about everybody. So if any Latino was offended, or any Puerto Rican, and Puerto Ricans probably talk, they're up there in the top 3 of crap talking of all Latinos, if we're being honest. They really are. Believe me, I know. You sit down at the Domino's table with your crazy uncles and your old man's friends, and you're going to hear a lot of shit. That's just the way that it is. Pardon my French. And it ain't going to be politically correct at all. That's for sure. If you're telling me that you couldn't handle a joke, that the most offensive thing about it was that the guy's not funny, as far as I'm concerned. That's the only thing I find offensive about it. He's got an annoying voice too. Like, his voice is, I guess that's pretty much it. Then you're just full of it. You're absolutely full of it. Or you are adopted and you've not been around other Hispanics your entire life. And you grew up in the white liberal suburbs, as far as I'm concerned. So anybody that's offended by that, you're full of crap, or you were already looking, you You're either A, full of crap, B, you were looking for reasons not to vote for Trump in the first place, or C, you already voted for Kamala Harris and you're trying to white knight, so to speak, for minorities. So you're full of it. You're absolutely full of it. It wasn't a big deal. Plus, it was a comedian. They've tried. You saw how on The View and on various, media platforms controlled by the left, they attributed the comment to Trump directly and not a comedian. They are so abjectly dishonest that it is flabbergasting. And if that was not exposed then, it will be exposed with Joe Biden's garbage comment yesterday, where he actually did call Trump supporters garbage. So that to me is a lot more offensive. But you know what? We've got thick skin too. We know that he was being serious. We know that that's what they think of us. And guess what? We've embraced and we've taken the garbage title as our own. We're ready. I'm like Oscar the Grouch right now. I'm in my trash can. I am floating in it right now. I was floating in it before because of the joke and being Puerto Rican. Now I'm really in it now because I'm in a Trump supporter, according to the president. So, that's the difference between us and the left. Even when they are truly offensive towards us, guess what? We can turn that around and throw it back in their faces and make something of it. We can make something of it. And we also know that they hate us. We know what they think because we're here to undermine everything that they've built, everything that they believe in, and the evil causes that they stand for. And they fear us. They absolutely fear us and what we stand for. So that's the difference between the left, the progressives, whatever you want to call them, because I don't even know if the left and the right really exist in the way that we know it anymore. It really doesn't. We're basically to populism and authoritarianism. I think that that's really where we're at. And the Republican and the Democrat parties have been skewed. You've got Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, Barbara Bush the Younger, a bunch of Bush administration cronies and lackeys, Jeff Flake, name them. All these establishment Republicans, Arnold Schwarzenegger, campaigning and voting for Kamala Harris, Michael Steele. So I don't even know who's a Republican anymore and what it means to be a Republican. We've got RFK and Tulsi Gabbard. We've got a bunch of other celebrities that I never would have expected to have. So I don't even know if these labels exist anymore. It really is those that are against authoritarianism and those that believe in authoritarianism. That's where we're at. It's freedom versus oppression. That's really what it comes down to. Common sense versus manipulation and propaganda. So that's what we believe for. People who can take jokes and people who can't and want to take the fun out of everything and crush you anytime that you make fun of them. So I think that, that's the real offensive comment here. And if you saw how they spun it around, they changed the transcript on President Biden's speech. The media this morning either barely covered it or, again, they tried to cover it the same way where it's like, that's not really what he said. It's not a big deal. He didn't mean it that way. You can see how they've gone to the damage control already. So they will try to manipulate anything to spin it their way. And that's really what we need to be concerned about, because they will always try to do that. They try to gaslight us. They try to obfuscate things. And you can sure as hell bet that if they win, they will try to take X away from Elon Musk and they will throw us back down into this hole. Now, I think that at this point, the genie's out of the bottle, ladies and gentlemen. They're not going to be able to get us to go back. The status quo is not going to happen anymore. They are basically done. There are too many of us who've actually been awoken. So, the woke is so stupid of a term sometimes, because when you think about it, those of us that can see what the deep state has been doing, can see how we've been manipulated by the media and big tech, these major corporations in the government, we are the ones who are actually awoken and that can see things. So if anything, I guess we're the ones that are really woke to what they're doing. If you want to be cute here, but that's just me being dealing with semantics. So, but that's what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to manipulate all of this and push it against us. And it's incredible because the one thing that I am upset about is I may not have been offended by that joke, but there's no doubt that there was some damage done. And we did give, we are in an election that we have no idea. Trump by all accounts is winning, and I want to believe that. I want to believe that they haven't manipulated the polls in the other direction to then crush us so badly when they steal it or when they win that we just lose it. We just go absolutely insane because we'll be like, this is impossible. We don't believe this, blah, blah, blah. Like, look where the numbers were, and now you're telling us they weren't. So I don't think it's the biggest setup ever. I don't know if they're capable of doing that just yet. But, I mean, stranger things have happened, right? So I want to believe that's true. But, when you're in a battle like this, if we think of it in 2020 terms, anything that they can throw on the ground and distract from their horrendous campaign is something that can hurt us. So, the rally at Madison Square Garden was something that was unprecedented. We'd never seen an event like that. It was hours upon hours upon hours. It was a spectacle. We had more than 20,000 people inside the garden, like 70,000 people out of it. It was in New York City. You could feel the energy. The speakers were all incredible. Trump gave a great speech, and everybody that came before him did an excellent job as well. We got to see all the superstars of the future conservative populist movement and all the thought leaders there. And it really was absolutely incredible. It's something that we will probably never see again in our lifetimes, if we're being honest. And it was historic. And they tried to push the Nazi narrative onto it, and it wasn't going to stick. There's no way it was going to stick because too many people were there and witnessed it and filmed it. It was broadcast all over the place. And anybody who's willing to be intellectually honest would have watched that and would have said, wow, this is pretty incredible. This is a movement here. And even if I don't like Donald Trump, this is impressive. And a lot of the things that these people are talking about, especially when you have RFK, Tulsi, Vivek, and Elon talking about the things that they did, it really changes everything. It really changes the narrative if you're being totally honest with yourself. And you don't have to be a traditional conservative or a MAGA person to see that the campaign's completely flipped. Whereas Kamala was the one talking about hope and joy and all this stuff. What Madison Square Garden had was an atmosphere of celebration, of hope of actual hope for the future, of patriotism, love of country, and humor. And it was just something that I'd never seen before like that. And to see a political rally become essentially a rock, like really a rock concert type of event is incredible. It really is incredible. I think it was the Republican equivalent of what they tried to do with Barack Obama's campaign in 2007 and 8. And it blew that out of the water. The same way that you had that kind of infectious atmosphere that took over the left, and even a lot of people on the right voted for Obama the first time. This is really, it took that to the next level. So yeah, it sucks that they were able to make a controversy out of it. Hopefully it didn't take too much out of the balloon. They would have tried to find other things, of course, but I think it would have been a lot more difficult for them. The Joe Rogan interview. Another fantastic feather in Trump's cap. I think that, I'm upset that Joe Rogan did not want to do this interview sooner. I think he really was afraid of looking like he had, anything outside of neutrality for what was going on in politics. But look, he's a manly guy. He likes UFC fighting. He likes comedy. He goes hunting. And he's a libertarian when it comes to, substance usage. So I guess on the last one, the left might be amenable to his viewpoint, but the libertarians they're all for that too. So I think on most of the issues, he had to have known that Donald Trump was his guy. That's just the way it is. Like, I just don't see how it would be any other way. And I think he was very afraid of that and didn't want to pull the trigger soon. And once he did, you ended up with such a sincere and frank conversation. And I don't think that we've ever seen somebody who was a president of the United States sit down for an interview like that was that long. And it was just two men having an honest conversation about life experiences. And to have Donald Trump be humble, to elaborate on what it was like to be president, to talk about the things that really touched him, when he went into the story of Abraham Lincoln and going to the White House for the first time and the Lincoln bedroom, you could see that the gravity of the office and the honor that he had serving as president and being in the White House, it hit him on an emotional level. Not just I'm the most powerful man in the world, which is what I'm sure most people that didn't like Donald Trump probably thought how he felt. It was very sincere. I think Trump also impressed a lot of people with his memory and his knowledge on a lot of different subjects, because I think even on the right, sometimes we underestimate Trump because he can be very hyperbolic. He can be a little bit emotional and seemingly shoot from the hip. But we can't forget that this is a businessman who ran, multiple major corporations, lost and regained his fortune a couple of times, and, was responsible for one of the most successful reality television shows in history. And he really is able to carry a lot of subjects. The man never runs out of energy. He never seems to sleep. He's extremely funny in his own right. And I think that a lot of people got to see a different side of him than they'd seen before. Those of us who've been watching him for years and have seen him on other interviews already know these things. But I think it broadened that to, it brought it to a broader audience. And it really humanized him in ways that a lot of his appearances have lately. And I think that was fantastic. And I think it's even better now that Kamala Harris and her team realize that she is completely incapable of doing the same. She can't do it. She would never survive 3 hours on Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan would be nice to her. But after a while, I think he would just expose her through a lot of the questions that he would ask and just his own curiosity. So they know that she won't survive in a space that's not curated, because we've seen how disastrous the supposedly non-biased interviews have been lately. Anytime that she's untethered, whether it's on Fox News with Brett Baer, oh, excuse me, I haven't had enough of my coffee. Or, on CNN with Anderson Cooper, or any event where her, where her teleprompter goes out, she's left out to dry, and we can see that she is not intelligent. She's inarticulate, and sometimes she looks like she's drinking stuff. Let's be honest. It looks like she's like drunk or on some other stuff. Who knows? And she's almost seems like a sociopath. She starts laughing out of nowhere. And that's not somebody who could manage a country, let alone a law office or even a classroom. I wouldn't let her manage a McDonald's if she'd actually worked at one, which we know she didn't. It would just expose her on every level. And definitely she's not capable of being commander-in-chief. So any of our enemies throughout the world, whether it's, Putin, Xi, Kim Jong-un, or the Ayatollah, in Iran, or even our own, fellow globalist world leaders in the EU and NATO, they'd be able to walk all over her and use her to whatever means they desire, because she's just a puppet. She's the latest puppet they chose. Biden was the first one. She's the second one. They thought they could push her towards with identity politics alone, and they completely failed. And you can just see how absolutely weak she is as a candidate and as an individual. And so going on Joe Rogan will just blow that open completely. And that will be the final nail in the coffin. So I suspect if she does do the Joe Rogan interview, honestly, she'd probably wait until Friday. She already said that she would only do an hour and she would want Joe to go to her, which tells me that she would waste his time, probably delay everything, have some sort of national security issue occur, and take him down to like 30 minutes or something like that. And then Joe would be pretty pissed off, but he wouldn't be able to do much about it because at this point he'd be invested. So he's got to hold his ground and demand that she does 3 hours. Again, I would guess that she could only do that on, Friday or Monday, unless Joe is willing to do something on the weekend, just especially for her in his studio, which he might because it's unprecedented. But I guarantee that they'll try, if they do it, which they probably won't, it'll be at the last possible second in order to make sure that it causes a minimal amount of damage before election day. And that's about it. That's all I can do. Or watch her do it on November 5th right then. No, I wouldn't put it past them. I really wouldn't put it past them. All right, let's see what we've got here. Now, we've been seeing a lot of weird stuff. I can't say if all of this is true, but you guys can kind of see for yourself what we're seeing here, some of the strangeness that is occurring in Pennsylvania and in Michigan with this election. This is from Ann Vandersteel recording a video of, people that we're not sure where they're from, who have been bussed into a polling place in Pennsylvania and are allowed to cut in line. And, this gentleman can kind of speak for what he saw. And, we're seeing a lot of different things like this during this election.
No, they had these people, they had about 12 of them walked in. They were all foreigners. And then they took them up. These younger people helped them to fill out, they say, vote PA today. Yep. And then they took them up, and somehow they beat a 2-hour line. And then they walked up, and the one lady, they were even asking her, they're like, we don't have you in the system. Your name's not right. And they're like, oh, well, we'll take it back and change it. Yeah. How do you change your damn name?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you.
So, is this happening? I'm not sure. We don't know. You have to take people's words for it, because you're going to get a lot of, look, there's going to be people who are even on our side who want to lie about certain things. It could even be agent provocateurs who want to gaslight our own side and rile us up. So that's one of my many concerns. They're going to throw every tactic on the table here, right? They're going to try to provoke us and discredit us. So we do have to be careful at every turn. We're seeing people right here that are
to vote. Are they
I'm going to ask you to talk to this.
Are they going to turn everyone down?
I'm going to ask you to talk to this.
Democrat operatives who are wearing fake badges, who are turning people away from voting.
4:30. I got you. Why is it closed?
So
Please.
We have police officers that have been turning people away in PA before the voting deadline. We have people in Georgia who are preventing people from filming ballot drop boxes. So there are a lot of that. There's a lot of this going on. And most of it seems to be real. And we know that in Bucks County, in Pennsylvania, they were turning people away from voting early. Now in Pennsylvania, it's a little bit strange because I believe that everything is a mail-in ballot, but if you go to a courthouse in your municipality, you can fill out that ballot in person and then turn it in immediately, so it doesn't go through the mail. So that's how the early voting works there. But that's obviously a different process than the early voting here in Florida, which is, full regular voting. So, we're already seeing shenanigans like this. So in Bucks County, they extended the voting deadline. The Trump campaign sued. They were able to push that until Friday at 5 p.m. So that's a huge deal. But we're seeing a lot of these voter suppression tactics occur in counties where it seems like the GOP is doing a phenomenal job in outpacing what they were doing in 2020. So it really does seem to me like the steel is on. They're trying to manipulate a lot of things here. And I just don't, I don't know how effective this is going to be. And again, this is why any little misstep that might be done by the campaign, like the stupid joke and all this stuff, it's not that it prevents Trump from winning, but it could make things close enough that they could actually pull off the steal. Because I think right now Trump, again, is winning by a massive margin. And maybe they know they're going to lose no matter what. And what they want to do now is to limit the bleeding. Because let's say that Trump not only wins in an electoral college landslide, but he actually wins in a popular vote landslide. Because it seems like he's getting more votes than ever in states like New Jersey, California, and New York State. He's probably not going to win any of those states, if we're being honest. But if he's able to get enough votes that he also gets the popular vote, even though that has no significance in the way our electoral system works, thankfully, it would almost serve as a mandate where it would cripple the left in the authoritarian states so badly, because more than half the country for sure, numerically would have said, we don't want the Democrat Party, we want Donald Trump. The man that they have impeached, demonized, accused of felonies or convicted of felonies at this point, tried to call an insurrectionist, tried to call a fascist and a Nazi, tried to kill. They've tried almost everything to undermine Donald Trump and prevent him from being president. And if the American people, after all of that, the majority of them decided to vote for Donald Trump as president, and he wins both the popular and the electoral college, popular vote and the electoral college, that will be such a devastating narrative that they will not be able to spin, that at that point, then the Democratic Party apparatus will have to look in the mirror and they will have to reevaluate absolutely everything that they're doing. They will absolutely have to reevaluate everything. Celluloid Dream, what's going on? Great to see you. Sorry, chat, I haven't been paying too much attention because I've been on a roll and making sure that I've got everything going on, and my screens are arranged a little bit differently, so I can't see the chat as easily. So, I think that that's another possibility here, that they're trying to limit the damage by, if they can't win, they at least want to maintain the popular vote so that we'll always be able to argue against the Electoral College, make that a big issue, manipulate their leftists, and also make it easier to have massive left-wing protests throughout the country. Because let's be honest too, if he wins the popular vote, it's going to be because of a lot of votes in blue states. And so you're going to have a lot of people who are not going to tolerate the garbage that they did during the George Floyd riots, of people running rampant in the streets, because they're going to be like, hey, he may have gotten the electoral votes in my state, but 47% of my state voted for Donald Trump. Who knows how close California may get this time. He's going to win way more votes in California probably than the Republican has in decades. And so not enough to flip the state by any means, but it will change the political landscape, and it can change the political landscape for those states in their own elections going forward, because now a lot of people will look and they'll say, you know what? Most of the country actually voted for Trump as well. I don't need to be afraid of showing these principles or saying that I'm a conservative or a Republican or a libertarian or whatever. It will take a lot of their narratives away and it will blow them up. And even the media is now going to have to be careful, because if the media sees more than half the country, more than half of their audience now potentially are Trump supporters, they're going to have to drop a lot of stuff. They won't be able to. They will be in the minority now. They will be on the defensive, and they will have to completely shift everything that they do. So that's a double victory for us if it happens. That's not just the win that we want, which is we want to win the election, the presidency. We'd love to get the House and the Senate as well. But if you get that popular vote, it gives you a real chance to gain massive credibility over the apparatus and the powers that be. So I think this is something to aspire for. And I would say even if you're in a state like a Florida or a Texas that is extremely, extremely conservative, that really has no chance of losing it for Trump, you need to go out there and vote as well, because we need to pump these numbers up. We got to pump them up on every single level. We can't take any chances as it is to get what we need, which is the Electoral College, and to win those battleground states. But if we can run up the score, it is going to be a massive boon to the MAGA movement going forward, to the populist movement in the United States, and for freedom and establishing the future, really, because they're going to know that their ideas are not in the mainstream anymore, and they will not be able to push them the way that they did. So we can push that genie back into the bottle a little bit longer, and that will buy us more than just the 4 years where we try to expose them. It could buy us more. That could be a generational outcome where we can really, point to people and say, like, look, it's going to be okay. Most of your neighbors actually voted for Trump, and a lot of them that you didn't realize did. So we're not this crazy evil cult. In fact, we want you to have more rights than you want yourself to have, if we're being honest, because we want to establish your freedom of speech. We want you to be able to own guns. We're not going to stop you from saying crazy stuff on the internet. We're not. And, what are the things that we may want to get rid of? We took abortion back to the states, and, much to my dismay, I think a lot of even these conservative states are going to vote to continue abortion. I think abortion is immoral, but it is what it is. We pushed it back to the states, so Roe versus Wade is gone. There's not going to be a federal abortion mandate. I don't think that that's ever going to happen. So that's an issue that shouldn't even really be on the table for the left, and they've made a lot of far left female voters delusional about that, because it's not going to go away. The one thing that we may really need to push back on, and is a totally different issue, is going to be the transgender issue. And at a minimum, it needs to be illegal for anyone under 18 to transition. That to me is something that, yes, that is a battle that we will fight, and that is a moralistic battle. And we will push against pronouns in our culture and all that stuff. So yes, that is one that they absolutely need to be afraid of, because honestly, it's demonic. It is, denying your sex, wanting to mutilate yourself, and then wanting to pull children on in that. That's some demonic and evil stuff. So yes, that's an issue that if that's something that you care about, you're going to get punked on that one. That's one that we're not going to stop that fight. And that's a totally different level. But honestly, aside from that, what else? We want to lower your taxes. We want to give you school choice. We want to pull you out of wars, let you say whatever you want. And we're not even going to take away really anything, any of the stuff that honestly is downright evil that you want to be able to do. We're just not going to let you shove it down our throats. So you're coming out on top on this one, if you believe it or not. We're not only saving our own freedoms, we're saving yours, even if you cannot comprehend what that means as a Kamala Harris voter. So that's the absurdity of the left. They are resisting freedom because ultimately they don't want it. They want to be coddled. They want that sweet, sweet control. And there are just a lot of people that have been manipulated, propagandized, and are honestly mentally ill on the progressive side. And yes, this victory is going to perpetuate a lot of mental illness and depression in these people, because they will realize that they've been lied to, especially if we sweep the whole table. what is the left going to believe? Now, there's a lot of people that are just normies there that hate Donald Trump, and they're just going to be like, well, whatever. It's another election that we lost. It is what it is. But that hardcore cadre, the ones that we always see, the women like screaming into the sky in the camera. If you watch Hypnotic intro, you can see all those crazy TikTokers screaming and talking crazy stuff. Those people are going to lose it. There's no doubt. They've already lost it. They're too far gone. So that's going to perpetuate a massive mental health crisis here. But as far as like vengeance or anything like that, no, the only vengeance that we're going to have is that we're going to disempower the people that are oppressing us, and we're hopefully going to expose a lot of the political elites and the media. And yeah, if they did illegal stuff, they're absolutely going to go to prison. Or at a minimum, we're going to destroy their reputations because we're going to show everybody that they've been lying. So yes, they should absolutely be afraid. They should. But normal run-of-the-mill Democrats that just live and they are your next-door neighbors, no, nothing bad is going to happen to them. Nothing bad is going to happen to them. Their lives will be better unless they want to be completely coddled and have everything given to them and just be lazy with this administration. It will be. And I think that's something that we need to explain to people. Some of them won't believe it. And some of them, again, think that speech is violence, So it's going to take some deprogramming. Now, that's going to be difficult. I don't know how we're going to do that. I think that our youth, Gen Z seems to be waking up a lot. But there is a certain percentage of the youth in this country that is permanently damaged with a lot of these ideologies that have been pushed. So retraining them and teaching them correctly is going to be difficult. There'll be pushback there, especially because, again, like I said before, we're not authoritarian, so we can't impose this upon them. But, we can prevent certain things from being taught in schools, and then eventually those messages will die off. But they've got freedom of speech, so they'll be able to push a lot of this stuff anyway. So, I think that that's something that we really need to work on. And we do need to control the media in the sense that, look, we've been seeing guys like Ripa, Elon Musk, push their businesses. They've got freedom-minded principles, libertarian-minded principles. So conservatives need to jump into arenas that they haven't before. You need to jump into art, music, and media, and into politics, especially local politics. We need more people to become teachers and mentors on the right. Jobs that we traditionally don't want or we wouldn't get into, or that a lot of conservatives, especially politicians, have ignorantly said are just stupid. That's ridiculous. The left has been able to capture the youth in this country for so many years through pop culture. And so it's extremely important. Look at really how we've been winning the propaganda war against the left is through memes, it's through comedy, it's through entertainment in a lot of cases on social media. So that is something that we can't be afraid of, and that's something that has to change. So we need to embrace that and, and really push it forward and endorse it. We have to make movies that stand up to our principles. We've got to make art that espouses, what we believe in. We have to take back video games and all these other forms of entertainment. And this is why we also have to reduce censorship on platforms like YouTube so that we can create content that people that are more freedom-oriented are amenable to. We've been seeing how difficult it's been for gun tubers to produce the same type of content that they have over the years. Who knows, just for having this beautiful firearm back here, the video could get demonetized, or they could throw me out of this platform. Who knows? There's certain things you can't do. I can't touch this during a live stream. You used to be able to do things like that. You used to be able to take apart firearms and show people how to clean them, tutorial videos and things like that. You can't do that anymore. Some of it's for safety. They don't want people doing dangerous things, live on video where they can't control it, which is whatever. But it limits your ability to educate people properly and to bring the fun to these things. I think that YouTubers single-handedly, really brought the Second Amendment to a new generation. Video games and YouTubers really have saved the Second Amendment for younger generations as far as being part of the culture, so to speak. People have been fighting the long fight for years to get open carry and to change the laws. That's always going to be the most important thing, but you have to win the hearts and minds as well. And so entertainment is going to be the way that you do that. That's the Trojan horse into people's souls, so to speak. And that's something that the left has been very effective in using. And so we need to also embrace that and, not ridicule people that are into the arts and entertainment. So, yeah, go buy Rippaverse comics and boycott games that are woke. That's pretty much what I have to say. I mean, look at just not to get a little bit off topic, look at the BS that you're seeing with Dragon Age Veilguard. Pretty much every YouTuber that you've watched, even ones that are not, on our side of things, the ones that are pushing back against the modern audience, like, Hypnotic, Nerdrotic, and those guys, they all said it was crap. Even Mr. Matty Plays, who's like the most milquetoast reviewer on the internet, who doesn't talk about the politics in games, thought it was garbage. But you go on Metacritic and the game's got like an 8.5 or almost a 9, and it had multiple 10s. That's bullshit. We know that the game is terrible and it's totally woke. So that's where the media tries to control and manipulate things. So thank goodness we do have people on YouTube that have credibility, that are actually playing these games and are showing you it's garbage. And that are being honest about it. And we know that the print media is dying off anyway in the entertainment space just as much as it is in the political space. But that's why it's important to expose these things. Let's see what else we have. All right, here we go. We've got, oh, man, this just keeps going here. Politico. Philadelphia sues Elon Musk over daily $1 million payments to voters. We'll read Politico, even though they're a left-wing rag here, real quick, just because I like to have their stories and use them against them, and you can also see how they're trying to manipulate and spin things. And it's interesting, isn't it, that for years, Democrats have been able to bus in voters, give them gift cards, pay for these Kamala rallies and all this stuff, and you're essentially paying voters and bribing them through the promises that you're going to make, talking about reparations and things like that, student loan debt forgiveness. But Elon Musk, a private citizen, gives away $1 million in a lottery fashion, and they're trying to find, or sweepstakes, and they're trying to say that it's something illegal. So they're calling it an illegal lottery. Isn't that what a raffle is? Come on. Philadelphia is suing tech billionaire Elon Musk for giving $1 million per day to randomly chosen voters who share their contact information with his political action committee and promise to support the Constitution. The endeavor, helmed by Musk's pro-Trump America PAC, is indisputably an unlawful lottery, according to the lawsuit filed by Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner, who is a Soros paid-for attorney, by the way. And we all know who Soros is. If you don't, shame on you. You should know. He's the scum of the earth, one of the worst globalists. He and his son now at this point are trying to manipulate everything against the side of freedom and for authoritarianism and the elites throughout the world. Pennsylvania regulates lotteries heavily and lets local prosecutors sue people who run illegal ones. The giveaways also run afoul of Pennsylvania's consumer protection laws, according to the lawsuit, which says that while Musk claims winners are chosen randomly, he seems to favor people who attend Trump rallies. The lawsuit notes that Musk's PAC says more than 280,000 Pennsylvanians have signed the petition. That gives them a chance to win the money. Krasner asked a judge to immediately order Musk to stop the payout. Shortly after the suit was filed, Musk PAC blasted out several pictures via X, formerly known as Twitter, of a Michigander who received one of the checks. Every day until Election Day, a person who signs will be selected to earn $1 million as a spokesperson for America PAC, read the Post. It previews Musk's likely legal defense. The payments are paychecks, not gambling winnings. Reach for comment for the story. A spokesperson for the PAC pointed to the tweet. Krasner is not the only law enforcement authority scrutinizing Musk's giveaway. Last week, the Justice Department sent a letter to Musk's PAC warning that the stunt could violate a federal law that prohibits people paying people to vote or registering to vote. Again, the Democrat Party always does this, and they've done similar things. So I also think that the DOJ saying it may do it just shows that this is an intimidation tactic. It's actually all BS. They can't, and they know they can't do anything about this. They're trying to scare Elon or scare anybody that's working for him and to silence him. We know that Soros was trying to buy all of these radio stations, over 200, and the FCC was going to allow it to try to push even more propaganda. Talked about that a little bit ago. You know, I tweeted about it. If you can check, if you want to go scroll through my feed. So this is, again, what they've been trying to do, manipulate these elections, try to use scare tactics and lawfare, which is what they've done from the start against Donald Trump. And that's what seems to be the tactic that's worked most for them. And that's why they paid for so many DAs, Soros, and all these Democrat controlled think tanks and NGOs throughout the country so they could, free their protesters and do things like this, manipulate lawsuits and get favorable outcomes. So if anybody is doing anything illegal, it's really them. So, but once again, when we use tactics that they use and then do them better, they get pissed off. It's like YouTube, it's like radio, all these domains where the left used to be the best and they created for themselves. As soon as entrepreneurial, freedom-minded people jump into them, we tend to outdo them on all of these fronts. And once that happens, they get pissed off about it and they want to change the rules of the game or apply the rules in a way that never affects them and only affects us. So, all right, let's see what else we've got here. We got a few more stories here. So this is about the, the Bucks County extension for the elections here. So again, the police were not letting people go in until 5 days. This was the evidence that was presented to the judge. And they said, well, now you get 3 extra days. So this is one that's going to backfire on the Democrats here. And this is a huge win and could potentially help, secure Pennsylvania for us going forward here. So, there are good things that are happening. We have to stay on top of all of this. But I mean, you're already seeing weird stuff, right? So apparently the Colorado election supervisor leaked the passwords for a lot of the voting machines throughout the country.
See for months, if you knew where to look. Democratic Secretary of State Jenna passwords for Colorado's voting systems were posted online for anyone to see for months, if you knew where to look. Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold's office apparently posted them online by accident. Griswold's office
sure it was
found
by
out
accident.
last Thursday and had not told the county clerks who actually run elections. Then the Colorado Republican Party went public today, demanding that Griswold secure those voting machines. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
The Colorado Secretary of State's office is required to maintain a spreadsheet of certified voting systems for each county. That's this list. At the bottom of any spreadsheet, you can have multiple tabs. You can also hide a tab. But if you post the raw spreadsheet to a public website, apparently anyone can also unhide the tab. This happened and apparently revealed one set of passwords for voting computers in Colorado. Next confirmed this with the Secretary of State's office today, but we learned about it this morning in an email blast from the Colorado Republican Party. The passwords had been up for months without it being known, and some, but not all, were current and active.
There are 2 passwords to get into any voting component along with physical access.
Democratic Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold explained how each computer component requires 2 passwords to gain access. The ones on the website were just one of the passwords, and it requires in-person access by multiple people, which is tracked by 24/7 video recording and badge IDs that record who has gained access.
We have layers of security, and out of just an abundance of caution, have staff in the field changing passwords, looking at access logs.
The truth is this a concern? Yes. Is it being mitigated? Yes. Does this mean that
this is what they do. They just chip away, and until they get caught, they just try to keep getting away with it.
Matt Crane is the former Republican Arapahoe County Clerk and current Executive Director of the County Clerks Association. He admits this is not great news, but not something that will compromise anyone's vote.
I want to stress here, this isn't all Republicans, but you will have some Republicans who will use this for political and financial purposes, whereas we as clerks, we will stay in the truth and honoring our oath of office to serve our constituents in a truthful and honest manner.
So again, just more weird things that are going on, right? And then we've got this story coming out of Michigan. This is from the Detroit News. A Chinese student to face criminal charges for voting in Michigan, but the ballot will apparently count. So, apparently they can't get this ballot back. There's no way for election officials to retrieve it. But how many more of these are going on in Michigan? We know that in the past few election cycles that for whatever reason, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan all vote together. They all end up getting the same results. Well, not the same results. They all vote for the same candidate. So if any one of them goes one way, the other two are going to go that way. So it really seems like there's a lot of focus right here in Michigan and in Pennsylvania, which honestly, it would make more sense that they're a little bit more conservative with all the blue collar and factory and mining workers in those states. So, to see these kinds of shenanigans, we know that both of their governors are very, Shapiro was up to be one of the, in the final running to be vice president for Kamala Harris, and Gretchen Whitmer, sorry. And in Michigan, she's always been insufferable and was also in the running for that. And she's the one that did that blasphemous Holy Sacrament video with the Doritos and that woman dressed as like a young girl. It was this weird perverted thing. So we kind of know how they are there. And Michigan also had issues with votes coming in. They've already been trying to tell people in Michigan and Wisconsin that they won't have the results on election day in all likelihood. Wisconsin was the state that had the graph jump up in the middle of the night during the 2020 election. So this is where they're going to focus their efforts to try to steal this election. Again, YouTube, I really don't give a shit what you do to my channel at this point. All my videos are demonetized anyway. You'll probably change the rules and be retroactive about it and ban me, but that's why we've got Rumble, why we've got X, and why I back up every episode that I make onto my hard drives and back those up as well, so you can never stop the signal. But there are going to be countless stories like this going forward, and we just have to keep exposing them at every turn. This is what's going on in Michigan. This is the Secretary of State. And, I'll just let her speak for herself.
Why was that only caught with the issues with the programming of the VATS with specifically from Dominion? Why was that only caught in the past few days, and why can't it be fixed? I saw the release.
Yeah, this is a nationwide issue with Dominion voter access terminals in the counties that use them. And the voter access terminals, of course, not all the machines, just the ones that are accessible, have an issue with the straight party voting and a programming issue that's, again, affected the machines nationwide. And I think all of us that use Dominion machines were unhappy to learn about this during the testing period and as early voting began. So we're working with Dominion to seek accountability on that front, and also are working with our clerks to ensure voters are aware of this programming issue that will require them to ensure they are voting every section on the ballot.
Do you think it's a bigger issue in Michigan because we do allow voters to cross over in ways that a lot of other states don't?
Because we have straight party. It's not struck me as I've talked to my other colleagues in other states. They're just as upset about it as we are. So, yeah, or surprised, I think. Yeah.
So, interesting that the same company that was the subject of a lot of lawsuits in the last election, is kind of involved with this. But I won't go there with that one because a lot of people got nuked monetarily. But kind of ironic, isn't it? And, you know, not really a story that I didn't really think that that's how the previous election worked. They did a lot of other things that really affected it. But it would be ironic if everybody that believed that turned out to be right. That's all I'm saying. So, you know, maybe that'll be like what conspiracy number 100 that's been proven in the last few years. So we've got a pretty good record of all these things coming to pass. So maybe that'll be one that comes to pass as well. And then we'll get the number of federal agents that were involved in January 6th. And that will be, then have been right about every conspiracy at that point, right? So that's pretty much what I've got right now. We also had that news, the New York Post said that Facebook execs suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop scandal to curry favor with the Biden-Harris administration, according to a bombshell report. So it won't go too deeply into this. We already suspected and knew all of this, but it goes back to the primary narrative that I think really crippled Trump's chances in the 2020 election, on top of other shenanigans that were occurring. And it is the Hunter Biden laptop was completely suppressed. And this would have made all the difference, I really think, in that election. But again, I think that this Trump administration will be much better than what the 2020 Trump administration would have been, because we still had way too many deep state apparatchiks involved there. And Mike Pence was really not a great vice president. He didn't truly believe in MAGA. J.D. Vance is a million times better. And this tees up a much better future for the country. So, you know, maybe sometimes things are meant to happen. That's the way I'm going to look at it. And we'll get it this time. But this is still an outrage. The FBI warned major U.S. tech companies ahead of the Post's first reports on Hunter Biden's laptop in October 2020 that Russian agents were preparing a strikingly similar document dump. And once the scoop materialized, Facebook executives discussed calibrating censorship decisions to please what they assumed would be an incoming Biden-Harris administration. And a congressional investigation found the new details contained in an interim report by the House Judiciary Committee's Subcommittee on the Weaponization of Government are emerging as former President Donald Trump leads in polls ahead of the November 5th election, and as his allies urge a house cleaning at the FBI and possible new regulations or antitrust actions to punish and restrain platforms like Facebook. Quote, FBI tipped us all off last week that this Burisma story was likely to emerge, and an unidentified Microsoft employee wrote on October 14th, 2020, the day the Post published the first in a series of bombshell stories on the Biden family's foreign dealings, according to the congressional report. Internal Facebook communications, including a chat log, showed that employees quickly discounted the Post's reporting because it was the exact content expected for hack and leak. Right on schedule, another Facebook employee concurred. Obviously, our calls on this could color the way an incoming Biden administration views us more than almost anything else. Facebook's then Vice President of Global Affairs, Nick Clegg, wrote on the same day to Vice President of Global Public Policy, Joel Kaplan. The Post spent nearly a month verifying the authenticity of laptop files ahead of their publication, though it's unclear to what extent the FBI was aware of that work as it prepared its pre-buttal. The FBI has possessed Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop since December of 2019 and knew that files cited by the Post in its coverage came from a Delaware computer repairman and not the Kremlin. But after preemptively discrediting the world exclusive to big tech, the FBI kept silent as 51 ex-intelligence officials suggested, and then candidate Joe Biden outright alleged that the files came from Russia. Yeah, we know. There you go, the intelligence state betraying us as usual. The Post reporting showed that Biden, while vice president, interacted with international business associates of his son Hunter and brother James, including in countries where he helped steer U.S. policies such as China and Ukraine. The reports were widely, if belatedly, corroborated by other news outlets and the files were even used by federal prosecutors in court, but only after Biden defeated Trump in November of 2020 by a narrow swing state margins, which some Republicans say was in part due to the cloud of suspicion over the laptop. So there we go. We know how that story ended up, and it got us to where we are today. So that's all I've got. We're a little bit past the 2-hour mark here. I obviously need more coffee, but I'll keep you posted on if we come back tomorrow night for some Call of Duty Zombies on Halloween, and we'll be back for our Friday night gaming stream at 6 p.m. as usual, and we'll see what time next week's rants are. If we do it on election day or before, I'll keep you all posted in that. But this has been episode 22 of Rolo's Rants. Thank you all so much. Thank you again to Greg the Goblin for dropping the $50 super chat right there. I hope you enjoy the Baby Metal concert, my friend, and I look forward to seeing you all in the chat on the next one. Good luck. God bless America, and God bless all of you. Take care and have a wonderful evening.